Okay, so here's my submission for Don't Make Us Bored, a game called Drawkanoid, which is Arkanoids plus drawing. So, the thing about it, the main thing about it is instead of a paddle, you draw your paddle, essentially. But also the other thing is that the ball moves very quickly unless it's in the bottom section of the screen, the slow zone. And the way the game really ramps up the difficulty is in later levels, the slow zone will not slow the ball by nearly as much. Also notably... Okay, that's embarrassing. I swear, I always die early on. The ball does not move at a fixed rate within the slow zone, rather, it slowly accelerates, it speeds up. And so if you wait for it to get low down before trying to intercept it, it'll start going really fast. So it may have seemed like I was having some difficulties there, and it was curving back in on my paddle. The thing is, I had a power-up active that makes the ball home in on valid targets, which often results in that. While it has some issues, like getting stuck near the bottom or getting stuck around one target, the homing sometimes just clears entire screens. So a screen is considered completed when you have taken out all of the targets with the exclamation mark. So you can see one up there. It's kind of hard to point things out. Once you've cleared those all, there will be some big target at the top. Some, like, guy will show up, and you hit him once, and you clear the screen and move on to the next one. So, power-ups you get based on certain criteria, depending on which ones you pick. You can pick a load-up of 3 different power-ups. As you can see, one of the ones I picked was just extra lives, which I find handy, but I also picked homing and pierce. So, homing, they both require wall bounces. Different ones might require different things like hitting blocks or bouncing off the paddle, things like that. So it's good for me to make the ball go really shallow and wide so that it bounces off the wall more, if I can handle that, because that means more power-ups. So the pierce means it will go through the first, I think it's like 4 blocks that it hits without bouncing off, and it'll just go straight through them. That's what happens sometimes with the homing. It's worth it, though. I mean, even when it does that, it's still the best power in the game. Extra life is based on the number of levels I clear, I believe. Although you can't go above 4 lives, so it's not quite as strong as it might seem. You definitely are going to have a hard time going infinite even with it. If you don't take it, there are no extra lives to be gained. So... just having, like, what amounts to 2 or 3 extra lives in a playthrough, maybe 4, does go a long way in giving you a longer playthrough. I really love the super fast ball outside of the slow zone, because it solves one of the biggest problems with Arkanoid and other Breakout type games, which is that if you get the ball stuck up in a weird spot, like, yeah, that's good, because that means that you're going to pretty safely clear the blocks, but it also, oh god, it just takes forever, doesn't it, sometimes. But this one keeps you in the action being making sure the ball doesn't hit the bottom. At almost all times, there are very few opportunities you have to just sit and watch the ball. Usually that only happens when it gets stuck due to the homing, or if it gets a really shallow angle on the wall and just bounces back and forth. But otherwise, you're basically always drawing the next line. So you can only draw straight lines, and you can only draw them so long, although there is a power-up you can take to allow you to draw longer platforms. Let me turn the audio up just a smidge. Music's pretty good in this. But I don't find that having longer platforms is really worth it. I often don't use the full length of them. And you can kind of drag the platforms in a weird way. Once they reach the max length, they'll sort of average out to be in the middle of the line you've drawn. And so with that, you can sort of move the limited length platform along a little bit as you continue to draw longer. While you can draw weird angles on your platforms, you cannot draw curves, notably. That's a good one. I will have to put a flashing lights warning on this because, I mean, this is some pretty intense visual stuff. The shaking more than anything. I think I can turn the shaking off, but even then, I mean, the neon lights, they're pretty bright. The homing can work against you by giving you some pretty weird angles for the ball to move in. Oh, notably, the platforms that you make do disappear shortly after the ball leaves the slow zone, but not immediately. So sometimes you will draw a platform and the ball will bounce and basically go straight back into it, which is handy for saving you from having to do another drawing, but you shouldn't rely on it. You should always be ready to draw another one. You can also hit the ball with the side of the platform. I'll do it here. But that's really risky. You don't want to do that on purpose. It very often ends up just missing, or sending the ball in a weird direction that you weren't anticipating. Being able to draw platforms at an angle is really handy for controlling the ball, particularly for trying to get the wall bounces that are handy for getting more power-ups. You have to talk in a stilted way, because anytime I'm drawing, my brain's like, hold up, something more important's happening. Shut your trap. You gotta concentrate. Having Pierce in these later levels is really important for getting your ball out of the danger zone and into the top area where it'll then get stuck. Because otherwise you're just gonna have to deal with the fact that there's so much stuff in the way at the bottom that you're gonna have to go a bunk and 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 a bunk. And that gets really fast. So some of the power-ups I chose not to take, particularly ones that are available early on, because this is a completed save file, are like, I think there's one for sticking the ball, like you can get it. No, there's not. I'm thinking of that because, like SNES Arkanoids gets you a power-up that'll stick it to the paddle. But there's one that allows you to choose where the ball goes. You click on a spot and your ball will home in towards that. Sounds useful, it's okay, but it's not great. Another one shows you the angle that your ball will be shot back up at, which is fully redundant by the time you get, homing, because why would I care where it goes if I know that it's going towards blocks? Okay. There's also curvy, which makes it wiggle while it's up, and that means that it can hit some hard-to-reach spots, which can be kind of handy. There's the longer platform that I mentioned. There's a better slow field. The slow field will remain more powerful for longer. I think there's one more, but I'm not really remembering where it is. This is about, usually where I die, around level 15, where the slow field just feels like it's not doing anything. So that's my run. It doesn't take very long. Really, the run only goes long if I do well, So this should only be like let's see how long that was. 9 minutes? Yes. So this will be a little 10-minute affair. You won't be able to gong me. I'm gong-proof. I suppose after I'm done I can show off maybe Zen mode or countdown mode, which is kind of neat. But there's not that much to show off, really. It's a really fun game though, great time killer, and I highly recommend it. So that's my submission. Hope to see you. See you later.